right, thank you so much, Matt. Now back to the scandals hitting Washington right now. Unfortunately for the president, there's more than one crisis facing the White House.
New information on another so-called scandal puts the U.S. Attorney General in the hot seat, this time answering some pretty tough questions about a secret collection of phone recordings involving members of the press. Brian Mooar has the very latest on this part of the story.
Facing a media firestorm from the hot seat on Capitol Hill, Attorney General Eric Holder shed little light on the secret gathering of phone records from reporters at the Associated Press.
But I don't have a factual basis to answer the questions that you have asked because I was recused. I don't know what has happened.
The nation's top law enforcement officer recused himself from an investigation into high-level news leaks. But lawmakers are demanding the story behind the story.
We don't know where the buck stops, and I think to do adequate oversight, we better find out, and we better find out how this mess happened.
50 top media outlets signed a letter slamming what amounts to spying on the media, saying none of us can remember an instance where such an overreaching dragnet for news gathering materials was deployed by the department.
It befuddles me that there could be some justification that would allow them to infringe on the First Amendment to the Constitution.
Republicans created an ad that recalls President Obama's promises for a more transparent government.
For a long time now, there's been too much secrecy in this city.
Instead, the Obama White House has taken the protection of secrets to a new level.
Twice as many leak probes by this administration than all previous administrations combined.
Offering an olive branch to the media.
Broadly speaking, I can tell you that the president is a strong defender of the First Amendment.
The White House announced it has asked the Senate to reconsider a bill to protect journalists and their sources. Now the news organizations want to know whether other journalists are being investigated. In Washington, Brian Mooar, WTVA News.
And look for more on both of these stories ahead on Nightly News on WTVA and World News on ABC WTVA. And remember, you can always get the very latest information anytime with the WTVA News app for the smartphone and the tablets. In other news today, more details are coming out concerning the allegations against an Army sergeant at Fort Hood in Texas. It's the second time this month that a member of the military assigned to help prevent sexual assaults has come under investigation for alleged sexual misconduct. The unnamed sergeant first class faces allegations involving 3 women. Authorities say it's possible that prostitution-related activity may be involved. Authorities now believe a local logging operation may have sparked a massive wildfire in northern Wisconsin. The fire destroyed dozens of buildings and forced at least 60 people from their homes. At one point, the fire covered nearly 90 square miles. It's about 90% contained, and luckily no injuries are being reported. Next week is National Dog Bite Prevention Week. Today, the U.S. Postal Service is asking pet owners to help reduce the number of dog attacks against mail carriers. According to the post office, nearly 6,000 postal workers were attacked last year, but that's just a small percent of the nearly 5 million Americans who are bit by dogs every year. Today, Sports Illustrated released its annual list of the highest paid athletes in the U.S. At the top of the list is boxer Floyd Mayweather Jr., who's expected to see earnings of over $90 million this year. Miami Heat superstar LeBron James comes in second with more than $56 million. And at number 7 is an athlete who hasn't played a single game this year. Chicago's Derrick Rose will earn over $33 million this year alone, just for sitting on the bench. Meantime, there could be some cuts coming to the food stamps program. The House Agriculture Committee is debating a new 5-year farm bill today. That bill cuts the $80 billion a year food stamps program by a little more than 3%. Last year, more than 47 million people received assistance from the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program.
In other news today, one of the first studies related to the Pentagon's research into military suicides has been released. Now, that study shows 1 in 5 patients who suffer brain injuries are affected by suicidal thoughts. Authorities say the issue is more prevalent in soldiers who'd had multiple head injuries. Suicide rates have now hit a record high in the U.S. military. A report from the Pentagon shows nearly 350 active service members took their own lives in 2012. More violence today in Syria. Heavy gun blasts echoed for several blocks in the capital city of Damascus. Rebels and government forces have been fighting street to street for more than a week now. Neither side is willing to give up ground. The civil war is now in its third year, and the UN says the fighting has cost nearly 80,000 lives. In Germany, officials have decided to cancel a $1.3 billion purchase of American-made surveillance drones. Germany says the cost of getting clearance to fly them over European airspace would just be too high. Northrop Grumman had the contract to provide the drones, which were being built at its manufacturing facility in South Mississippi. Meanwhile, a Japanese airline has become the first air carrier to receive one of Boeing's 787 since battery fires grounded the jumbo jet back in January. Nippon Airways took possession of the jet yesterday at Boeing's factory near Seattle. The FAA gave Boeing the green light to resume shipments of the airplane after the company redesigned the plane's battery systems. Nearly 2 years after an earthquake rocked the Washington, D.C. area, crews have put the final pieces of scaffolding on the Washington Monument to make final repairs. A 5.8 magnitude earthquake rocked the East Coast nearly 2 years ago. The monument has been closed to the public ever since. And by the way, the price tag for repairs is around $15 million.
And in Connecticut today, it's known as the Game of Kings, but today it was a game for a prince.
Very popular prince. It's the final day of his official visit to the United States for England's Prince Harry. Jay Gray wraps up the royal U.S. tour with more on today's charity event.
After what has been, for the most part, a very public trip, Prince Harry ended his American tour with a private event at the ultra-exclusive Greenwich Polo Club, mingling with models and multimillionaires in an environment that is more than 8,000 miles and in reality a world away from the children they gathered to help.
Without this support, basic needs such as food, shelter and care remain unmet, leaving children vulnerable and very often without much hope in their lives.
Only 400 were lucky or wealthy enough to get an invitation, which requested a minimum of a $5,000 donation for lunch.
At number 1 is Royal Highness Prince Harry.
And a chance to watch the prince during an afternoon of polo.
It's a loose ball. Prince Harry comes in.
But the outcome here was decided long before the end of the match. The big winner, the Sentebale charity, co-founded by Harry in memory of his mom, Princess Diana. They help nearly 500,000 orphans and children struggling with HIV/AIDS in the small African country of Lesotho.
People really love coming to see him, so it means that we get an opportunity to raise lots of funds, raise lots of awareness.
As a prince, who many say is charming, rides away at the end of a very special week in the States. Harry will fly back to London this evening after a U.S. trip that's been profitable for his charities and most observers agree very positive for his image. Jay Gray, NBC News, Greenwich, Connecticut.
All right, doesn't it look like Prince Harry kind of resembles the guy over there?
That guy? Yeah, I know.
Our meteorologist.
It's like I married a prince, right?
All right, we still have much more news ahead. Coming up, residents in Oxford get a chance to sit